Frederick and Chaz, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us here.
So for those on the video feed, you're actually coming from the Lavender Library in Sacramento tonight, where you guys have just done your first event for the first co-written novel you've done together called In Case You Forgot.
Yeah.
Now, I raved about this book back in episode 196. Before we get into the book, you've just finished this event. What was it like to do your first public reading and Q&A?
You know what? It was magic. It was wonderful. We chose Sacramento specifically because we have a great connection to the community up here in Northern California. And we knew we had a community of readers who had read In Case You Forgot. So for Chaz and me, this was natural just to be here in Sacramento for the first. And we felt great. Great questions, great audience interaction.
Yes, it was wonderful. And for me, this is my first public book reading ever. This is my first book, and this is Fred's fourth book. And so I remember when Fred wrote, I started to become your fan when you wrote your second book, and I used to go to Fred's book readings, and now I'm partnered with Fred writing these things and touring, so this is amazing, and we're happy to have had this opportunity here in Sacramento.
And you were right about the questions. The audience asked you guys really insightful questions, and I think I'll repeat some of those for the podcast audience too. Yes. For those who don't know you, give us a little bit about your backgrounds and introduce yourselves. We'll start with Chaz, because we'll start with the guy whose name is second on the book. Just mix it up a little bit.
Well, yes. So my name is Chaz Lamar Cruz, and I, by day, I work in higher education. I'm an administrator at a university, and on the side, I'm more known for poetry. I write poetry, and this is my first novel, and so that's a little bit about me. And I'm from Southern California, was raised with my grandparents. I claim the deserts and cities of Southern California.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Frederick Smith. This is my fourth novel, In Case You Forgot, co-written with Chaz. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. By day, I'm also a university administrator. And then when I turn all the students away and come home, I get on my laptop and start writing.
Very cool. It's nice that you both have these nice creative outlets from the day job.
Absolutely. It's so important because if I were just to think about students and higher ed and campus life, I wouldn't have a life.
So tell us what In Case You Forgot is about.
Well, In Case You Forgot follows the life of two characters in a year span as they navigate relationships, jobs, work, and some of those relationships are friend dynamics, and some of them are romantic, intimate partnerships that are coming to an end and also beginning. And it's set in West Hollywood, which is a city in Los Angeles County, and it's also known as the queer space in Los Angeles County, the queer city in Los Angeles County.
Mm-hmm. And so as we begin the novel, the character of Zaire James is encountering or wanting to separate from his partner. And the main character of Kenny Kane is actually being broken up with via text message on the way to a funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just brutal, I have to say, as a way to open a book.
It's harsh.
It is.
Very harsh.
Because both characters are breaking up at the beginning. So you started the book at an end.
Correct.
For both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, except one is kind of more being proactive with ending a relationship, and the other one is being acted upon in terms of having a relationship end. But yeah, they're both about endings, but then renewing again or beginning again in West Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. What was the inspiration behind the collaboration and the book?
All right, so I had a novel out in 2015 with Bold Strokes Books called Play It Forward, and I took a little hiatus from fiction writing because I went back for a doctoral program. And when I finished the program, I had been out of fiction writing for about 3 years, and publisher emailed and said they were looking for some manuscripts. And Fred, hint, hint, we'd like one from you. And would you like to get back on this fiction writing thing? We'd like another book from you. And so I said, absolutely, I would love to write a novel. And then I thought about Chaz's interest in spoken word, poetry, and having read many of my previous novels. And so I said, Chaz, would you like to write a novel? And Chaz said,
Absolutely. And then we came up with a plan, and we executed the plan to get this book off the ground.
What was it like for you to suddenly get this invitation to write your first book?
It was amazing because, like I said, Fred has been one of the writers that I've read and enjoyed reading. And so when he asked, I took the first offer. I didn't think he was joking or anything, so I jumped at the opportunity. And knowing that I didn't have anything published, though I've written academically poetry, I was a little bit intimidated going into the process of writing with an expert, published expert, a doctor, but he's also my friend. So those feelings subsided after we actually started to write together.
Yeah, but I never had a doubt that Chaz wouldn't be up to the task of writing a novel because I knew and know that Chaz is an avid reader. Mm-hmm. I have been to many of Chaz's events, performing and doing poetry and spoken word, and so I knew that Chaz had the discipline and the wherewithal to stick to it. And so, with a deadline in place from the publisher and Virgo me, we started and we just worked and worked and worked and worked after hours, after our day jobs.
Yeah. You mentioned during this event tonight that Kenny actually comes from one of your other books.
Yeah, so my second novel is called Right Side of the Wrong Bed, and Kenny was a central character in that novel, mm-hmm. and hadn't thought about that character for a long time. And as we were starting to work on In Case You Forgot, I was actually having a tough time thinking about where do I begin with the character I wanted to create or write. And then I thought, I have this character lingering from like 10, 12 years ago who I kind of would like to know what he is up to, 10, 12 years later. And so it's like, Kenny Kane, let me reread Right Side of the Wrong Bed. Let me think about what was going on in Kenny's life then, and how do we update it for the novel that we were working on for that just recently came out. And so, Kenny is an old friend of mine.
Was it fun to revisit?
It really was, both in terms of looking at writing style, mm-hmm. What was relevant to Kenny back in 2008, 2009 when that novel came out. And then it was kind of like picking up with an old friend after many years of not seeing them. Maybe you see them on social media every now and then. But getting back with Kenny again was really rewarding and really nice. And especially given that in Case You Forgot, one of the pivotal moments is the loss of Kenny's mother. Mm-hmm. And in Right Side of the Wrong Bed, Kenny's mother was so pivotal and so important and so funny. Sometimes people would joke and say that the mother in that novel was like Jennifer Lewis from Blackish and the one they call a Mother of Black Hollywood. Everyone said that mom is like Jennifer Lewis. And so, to be able to write this character, then navigating life without that mom was a really important and pivotal moment in terms of picking up with Kenny's life.
Mm-hmm. And where did Zaire come from?
Zaire, well, the name Zaire comes from the fact that I love Z's. I have 2 Z's in my name. And I also, in my personal life, was going through transitions. I had just moved back to LA, specifically living in West Hollywood. And when Fred asked if I wanted to write a book about transitions, about endings and beginnings, I used my personal life to create the character of Zaire because I was also going through endings and new beginnings.
Which actually it's a good transition to a question I had. How much of you two are in your characters? Because I see just in your bios some connections, mm-hmm. that there's working in higher ed and mm-hmm. Living in West Hollywood and these things. So mm-hmm. how much of you is in these two?
You go.
Yeah, okay. What we like to share with folks is that fiction writing is not real, but it's so full of truth. And so we took the aspects of our lives that we wanted to talk about in through a truthful way, in a fictional way, and put them into the characters that we took lead on. And so one major element that my personal life that I was going through that Zaire shares, and that's pretty much it, just one major fact is that Zaire is going through a divorce, and I also went through a divorce. And so that was one transition that I was intentional about putting into the life of Zaire.
Mm-hmm. And one transition I was going through at the time of starting the novel, the character of Kenny lost a mother. I also lost a parent too. I lost my mother, and so that was something that that I felt made the writing really rich, because I was also experiencing many of the emotions that Kenny felt, just specifically in terms of loss and losing a parent figure. And so I feel like that led to some emotional realism as it related to some of the other fictional situations that Kenny went through in the novel.
What do you want people to take away from this book?
Wow. One thing that I would like people to get out of the novel is that there is hope for tomorrow, that no matter the challenges or struggles, that life continues, and that for me personally, I'm thinking about the idea of seeking help when one needs it. And for both of these characters, not only they're dealing with specific situations and issues in the queer community and in their personal lives, but there are some issues that connect with mental health, especially for the character of Kenny. And so I would like for people to get out that there's nothing wrong with asking for help, seeking help, help that's maybe not necessarily within your personal circle, but someone who's, separated a little bit. That's important to me.
All the things that you said, I echo. And one final thing I guess I would add is that sometimes when one navigates so many things in your life, it can feel really difficult to continue. And so I hope folks read the book and see themselves in some sort, or see a friend in the book, and to continue with trying somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You had mentioned in the Q&A that this was very much like an improv. So you didn't come into this book with an outline, and you didn't come into it even knowing where your end point was.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yet you deal with so many big topics, like the mental health, like being a person of color in West Hollywood,
correct,
losing parents, all of this material, and you stretched it through the narrative so well. Were there a lot of edits after the first draft, or did this come out as fully formed as it did?
Yeah, the magic happened on the first draft.
No,
No, it did not for this one at all. So when I write, especially fiction, I don't outline. I kind of go where the characters go. They take on a life of their own, etc. But in terms of the question, kind of tying up loose ends happened after the first draft was completed. And once we started looking for either holes in plots or loose ends that needed to be tied up, or situations that maybe were mentioned at some point in a novel, but we didn't either bring to closure or didn't thematically connect throughout the novel. So a lot of that kind of magic happened once the first draft was done. And then we did that cold, hard read of, like many writers, this is crap. This is awful. I want to throw it across the page, across the room like a vase or something. And so once we finished the first draft, then we were like, you know what? We need to tie up loose ends and put some plot points together and make sure that A to B to C to Z match and everything.
Yeah. Though we didn't have like an outline, we did know that we wanted to talk about specific topics through the lens of the characters. And so we said, what do these characters look like at work? So that's how our outline was. Kenny at work, or Kenny in work, or Zaire in work. Zaire in an ending, Kenny in an ending. So we had that kind of structure, and we allowed the story to just blossom from that kind of outline.
Mm-hmm. Having now worked together and gone through this book, I'm going to put you both on the spot. What is a favorite scene that the other wrote?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
Wow, favorite scene that the other wrote. You
go ahead.
No, you Well, I mean, I really enjoyed all of Chaz's scenes. Well, I think the one, like, I don't even know who wrote Palm Springs first,
I was going to say that,
or who initiated it, but one of us wrote a version of Palm Springs, then the other like took it and reworked it with lots more magic, and I think that was probably the most fun of the collaboration, was how Palm Springs turned out, because we did not know, and we won't give away any spoilers, but Palm Springs was Palm Springs. And we were like, we didn't know it was going to go where it went. I
got another one.
You go ahead. Okay, yeah.
Palm Springs is one of mine because we kind of wrote it together. But another one from Kenny that left me with all the emotions was the chapter when Kenny is having an argument with his best friend. And I remember reading it because we started off writing the book together. We would meet up and we would write together. And then towards the middle of the book, we would just say, tonight, talk about this. And then we can write on the cloud separately. So when I read Kenny's interaction with his best friend, I called Fred. I said, this is too much. I can't do it.
I think you were in tears.
Yes, it was emotional for me.
And then I got in tears. I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of what it would be like if best friends.
Yes.
It was brutal.
Wasn't it?
I mean, it was absolutely brutal.
But that's what happens when people know each other's vulnerabilities, and then they decide
to hurt each other.
I'm going to tap into that vulnerability, even though they really don't mean it. Yeah.
Now, I said, as I closed out my review, that I want sequels. I want a romance book for both Kenny and Zaire, because I want these two to find their happy.
Find their happy.
And they're in a good place. Don't make a mistake. I think they're both in a good place at the end of this book, but I want their happy with the right people. Do we get that? Maybe at some point?
We will say that we have started writing together again.
And I would, specifically because having seen Kenny's trajectory from Right Side of the Wrong Bed to In Case You Forgot, I am ready for Kenny to be secure, to grow up, make some more adult choices around romance, and not just fall for the okie doke, but to really find someone who really accepts and compliments all of Kenny's magic. Yeah. And so I am looking forward to writing that. I just hope that when we do write it, that it's interesting for readers and that people find their happy through Kenny's happiness. Yes. And I want Zaire to be happy too.
I wouldn't say that, like you said, I don't think they're not happy, but I think happy can look different in different ways. And so we're going to explore what happy is. Yeah. Potentially. That's all I'll say.
Coming in 2021, maybe.
Yeah. Hopefully 2020. Maybe 2020.
See. Yes.
I was giving you a little space there on the publishing calendar.
Yeah, we got to figure it out. Yeah.
So we talked about this is not your first book. What got you into writing fiction?
Okay, so I'm not originally from Los Angeles, but when I moved there, I went with the intention of getting into TV writing. I always grew up watching soap operas, Young and the Restless, General Hospital, One Life to Live, Guiding Light with my grandma, uncles, aunts, and everything. So I always wanted to be a soap opera writer, but really had no outline of how to do it. And so when TV writing, I figured that wasn't going to happen. I took some creative writing classes at an extension program at a university across town. And there I got connected with other people who were interested in fiction writing. And after the class was over, my professor, her name was Carrie Madden, she said, join my writer's group. I was like, really? And in her writers group, there were all these like Denise Hamilton and someone who wrote White Oleander and someone else. I was like, I'm sitting in a room with all these people who wrote all these books and they want little old me, gay, black me in their group. But what happened from there was Denise Hamilton, who writes these wonderful mystery novels in LA, was at a party in New York and was just having a small talk with someone about, yeah, there's this black gay person in my writers group, and he writes these wonderful chapters about black gay life in Los Angeles. And an editor who was at my previous publisher overheard her and said, give me Fred's contact information. And that's how it started. It was like ABC. And then from there, that's when the relationship with fiction writing started. Luckily, I had a pretty close to full manuscript because of this writers group, and all the magic happened from there in terms of book to agent to publisher to down for whatever.
Which was your first?
That was my first novel. Yes.
That's awesome. And you've been Lambda Literary nominated along the way too.
Yeah, Right Side of the Wrong Bed, and that was a total surprise. Right Side of the Wrong Bed, which Kenny started in, was nominated for a Lambda Literary Award and then became a finalist. And actually, I thought I was going to win, but I didn't win. But that's okay. No Erica Kane moment there.
But maybe this year.
Yes, I want that Emmy. No, but we shall see what happens. But yeah, it was such an honor. The awards that year were in Los Angeles, and I went with my friend Fiona Zed, who was also nominated for a Lambda Literary Award. And so we had fun together. And you know, the fun part is just being in an audience with everyone and celebrating all this queer fiction that's happening in the room, and just meeting all these wonderful authors and everyone affiliated with writing. And the Lambda Literary Organization is great. So, yes.
Now, Chaz, for you, you've been writing poetry. What brought you into that creative outlet?
Yes. So my mother, I think her second time in rehab, gave me a journal. I was a teenager at that time, and that journal became my way into tapping into like my emotion and sharing my emotion on paper. And so that helped me into creating poems. And then later down the line, I found out that my mother also was a poet. But then I went to college, undergrad, and I started to share with people the things that I would write in my personal journal that were poems. And I remember I joined a few competitions and won. And when I started to win, I realized, oh, okay, maybe people like the things that I write or things that I share. And that helped me continue to write poetry and also to share my experiences and my understanding of the world, my understanding of myself and society. And that started my journey with writing. And then Fred asked me to join in a novel.
How did it feel to transition from poetry to longer form fiction, and as I think you put it in the session this evening, writing entire sentences?
Yes. That was one thing that I really worried about going into this process, because with poetry, I can share a whole story in 5 lines. But then with writing a novel, you have to share that story in a few hundred pages, and you have to write in complete sentences. And so that was in the back of my mind. I don't know why it was in the back of my mind, because I've written academic papers before, but something about fiction writing scared me a little bit, and I think it's because I was writing with Fred, who is an amazing writer who I enjoyed reading. But yeah, I did think about, okay, Chaz, you can't just use a metaphor here. You have to explain this metaphor. You can't just use a simile. You have to explain it and stretch it. But I think Zaire's chapters are kind of poetic in itself.
Yeah. I certainly caught that when you were reading tonight, that there was a certain kind of cadence to it. And if people want to check it out, in the show notes for this, we'll link up to the live video that we shot of their reading tonight, in case you missed it before. What's coming up next for both of you, either collaborating or separately?
Okay, so yeah, we are. Chaz has started on the continuation of In Case You Forgot. And so I will get on that cloud and start contributing to the novel, see what corners Chaz has written Zaire and Kenny into, and pick up from there. But yeah, we're really excited about working together again on a continuation, not only because we want to do it, but also from people who've read the novel. They enjoy it and they enjoy the ending, and they're like, we want more. Mm-hmm. And so I think we need to give the readers what they want. So we're going to give them more Kenny and Zaire.
Yes. So that's one collaboration. I'm also doing a few more collaborations with writing, and I'm really excited to continue the story of Zaire and Kenny. Another story that I am breathing life into follows the life of 3 millennials living in LA who are navigating LA through the lens of loss, in particular different kinds of loss, but they're all friends. And then another collaboration I'm working on is a poetry book with a dear friend of mine who we write poetry to each other every day without knowing what we will read or what we're going through, and we don't discuss it, but we have a cloud where we just write poetry to each other, and I want to make that into a thing.
That is a fascinating concept in general, just to have that daily trading of creative energy back and forth.
Yes. I'm always writing now, and with this novel, it just inspires me to continue to write and to share, because journaling is something intimate to me, and I started to deal with processing my emotions with my mother, and now I'm starting to share the things that I write more.
How's it feel to share? Because that can be so incredibly intimidating, but also very freeing at the same time, I would imagine.
Yes, it's scary for me, because it pushes me to be more vulnerable, and being vulnerable is so scary for me. But not a lot of people know that. But sharing is very scary. But when I meet people who enjoy the things that I share, that's when it comes back. The gift of sharing comes back.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm not really shy about sharing my work. I've been doing creative writing stuff since 3rd grade. Contests in elementary school. I did newspaper in high school and college. And so I've always felt kind of confident and received a lot of compliments and great feedback from teachers, from readers about the work that I've done. So yeah, I am fine with sharing, but what does get me are they tell us not to read reviews. They tell us not to read what's on Amazon and on, all the other sites where people read books. And so, but, I get that phone out and sometimes I glance through and I read and I'm like, what do you mean you thought this? Or you didn't think it was a 5 or something. And then I have to tell myself, people are entitled to their thoughts and opinions. And you write because you want to create for the greater good of getting work out and not necessarily for a specific number or letter grade and things like that. But I do like all A's and I do like 5s.
So if you've read the book, give us a review.
Yes, anywhere.
Yes.
What's the best way for people to keep up with you guys online?
Okay, for me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram pretty actively under FSmith827. I'm also on Facebook too as Frederick Smith, author, or Frederick Smith on without an author page.
I'm on Facebook as Chaz Lamar, and then my Instagram and Twitter is Chaz Cruz without the A, so ChzCruz. And you can go to my website, chazlamar.com.
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, we wish you the best of luck as In Case You Forgot continues its journey out into the world. And thank you guys so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you for having us today.
Thank you.